Okay, I'm going to do hopefully a fairly brief demo on how I would put together a greeting card pretty quickly using some very simple elements. So we're going to go into Photoshop. I'm in Photoshop now, and I'm going to click open because I've already figured out where my template is. I've got a folder here. I've called it the Valentine greeting card assets, and I am going to open the horizontal template. Yours came in horizontal. I labeled mine. So here we go. We just opened it, and this is the size of it. Okay, it's a fairly decent sized document because it's got a lot of layers. We talked about layers a little bit, and you can see on the right hand side, here are my layers, and I can turn them on and off using the eyeballs on and off. Of course, my artwork isn't on there, so there's nothing to turn on and off. But I'm going to open a piece of artwork. I have a couple of cards that I had done previously, and I took the words off them to add them back on. But basically, you're going to have a piece of art or a photograph or something, and this is how you're going to do it. So I'm going to open, and I'm going to drive around. There it is, my Valentine greeting card assets. And in this case, I'm going to use an image I call Wov Woo, and I'm going to open it. So there it is. Now there's a couple different ways to get this onto the other template, basically the greeting card template, and one of them is very, very simple, just to copy this image, right? So I like keystrokes, as you know, so I'm just going to do Command A, and what that does is it selects all. So again, you hold down the Command key on your keyboard and tap A, and now you've got a copy of this image, so I can go back to my template, and I literally can just do Command V, and it'll paste right down here. Or so I thought. Oh, I didn't copy it. That's what happened. So I just went back to my picture. Command A selects all, and then Command C for copy. Okay, so let's go back here and Command V for paste. I know it doesn't make any sense, but it is Command V for paste. Now I'm going to give you a little clue about something right now that we'll talk about quite a bit. You'll notice that this picture is slightly smaller than the area that I want it. So I have a couple of choices. I can either bring in something else as a background, and chances are I'm going to do that anyway, but I may do that in the second demo. But there's another thing that I would conceivably do, which is make this larger. But the problem with making something larger is that it can actually alter the pixels or stretch them or make them bigger, and really it's not a good thing to do because you can actually diminish the quality greatly of anything that you're making going from small to large. So what we want to do in a simple case like this is we want to actually turn that layer, and you can see now it says your artwork and it's on that layer. We're going to put this into something called a smart object. So I'm going to go into the layer drop down menu and pull down to smart objects, and I'm going to convert this to a smart object. Just know that you can do this. And you'll know now by looking in the layers that it's got a little triangle on the bottom right. That means that that particular piece of asset, that image, that artwork, whatever it is on that layer is a smart object. And the difference between a smart object and a regular photograph or any kind of image that you have is it's essentially data. I'll explain that a lot later. It's not pixels anymore, it's data. So it can't be edited the same way that a regular photograph can be. But that's okay. The artwork is already great. It's already edited. I don't need to worry about that. So now what I want to do is, and because it'll maintain its quality now as I enlarge it, I'm actually going to do what's called a transform. And again, a keystroke, I'm doing Command T for transform. And you can see these X comes through, and I'm going to hover my mouse over a corner. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to drag this up and out. All right, so it's going to be fitting inside of here and just side to side, but not top to bottom. I've got actually more room on the bottom than I really wanted for it to look that great anyway. It was longer than it needed to be. And I can sort of, using my cursor and my mouse, I'm just moving this around to where I think it looks good. So I'm going to leave a little bit more bottom. And when I'm happy with this, you can either commit it by tapping on the check box, the little check at the top of the menu bar, or I can just hit return on the keyboard. And now it's sized exactly how I want it. And you can see that it hits right on that center point. Now I have the option of leaving the background white, or I could add a new layer and turn it to another color, but for this one, we're just going to leave it white. All right? So this information here is based on the template that we've got, and it tells you where everything goes, right? So these lines, the blue, the red, and the green lines all mean something very specific. Now, a full bleed means it goes all the way out to the edge. The trim is where it gets cut. And they do this because they want to make sure that if you have this sent to a professional printer, there's always going to be a trim line. So they want to make sure that whatever you want within it is safely within it. The truly safe zone here is the green. So that's where we actually want our image to fit inside of, unless we want it as a bleed. So let's take a look at that. This is the front. So you can see that in the center here with the dotted lines, that's the fold line. These these markers, essentially, you can put those in, and I'll tell you how later. Those are indicating where those lines are because I can't see through it unless I lower the opacity, which I can do. I just did that from the layer thing. I made sure that I've highlighted the layer that I want to lower the opacity for, and I can drag that down, or I can just create these lines for myself. So we know that this is what's going to be cropped in, and this is what's going to not essentially be the safe zone. Okay, that way we make sure everything looks good and the way we want it. So I'm going to go ahead and add some text to this now. And to do that, I'm just going to click on the T tool in the toolbar, and now I'm going to hover my mouse over in the area that I think I'm going to want text, and I'm just going to click once. And now I can type in something. Now the original title of this is called Wuv Woo, WUVWOO. It's just a sweet little romantic saying, and I'm going to type it. So I'm going to do it in caps lock, right? I just tap the caps lock key on my keyboard, and I'm going to type in WUV space WOO. Now, you may wonder why it doesn't seem like I typed anything. That's because in the text bar, it has red selected, but I actually want black. So I'm going to choose black, and I'm going to say OK. Now it didn't do it, and I'll tell you why it didn't do it, because I didn't have it highlighted. Remember I told you there's lots of mistakes you're going to make along the way, things you're going to forget, but as long as you know how it works, you can fix it. So now it should read Wuv Woo in black, which it didn't. So let's find out why. We always have to find out why. Well, somehow I didn't manage to get it black over there. Say OK again. And did I do that again? Did I highlight it again? Well, apparently I undid something. That's all right. We're going to get there. Now it's set for black. And now I'm going to type in Wuv Woo again, WUV space WOO. And I don't want it this small. That seems really small. But this is a preference. Whatever you're working on, the size is what the size should be. You can place it anywhere just by using your Move tool, which is the very top one here in the toolbar, and then making sure that you're on that layer, that it's highlighted, and then you can move this around. So I'm going to highlight it one more time. Nope, see, I didn't highlight it properly, and I clicked, so now I've got this extra layer which I'm going to delete. And I'm going to get back. All I have to do is make sure it's highlighted and click on the trash at the base of the layers palette, and I say yes. And I'm going to make sure I'm on here. I've got my cursor, I'm hovering over it, and I'm going to highlight it. I just highlighted the word. Now up here in the toolbar for the tool is all these different options, up to 72 points for that. Now, do I want 72 points? I could actually go larger just by typing in a number, but that looks a little bit too big now. So let's go back to the toolbar and see if maybe a 48 is a little more appropriate size-wise, and I think so. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this here. Now also, I'm not sure I like that type, right? So I'm going to go up here. Let's see if this is going to work for us. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to start scrolling through them using the arrow keys. This is American Typewriter. You can see it moving, changing real time, just so I can get an idea. That's kind of fun with this particular thing. Do you know that's actually a groovy font? I don't know if that's it's called Action Is, and it's very similar to the one that was used in a movie with Mike Myers. And I found it because I was looking for it, and I really liked it. Now, interestingly enough, now that type size looks too small for me, for my taste. So I'm going to bring it back up to 60. And there's a lot of other things that I can do with this, but we're just going to leave that as it is for now. Now there is such a thing as layer styles. In fact, you know what? Let's try 72 and see what it looks like and see if it's too big. Actually, I kind of like it. It's fairly big and it's fairly bold. Whoa, woo. Looks fun to me. So there are layer styles that you can do with type. Just make sure you're on the type tool. And so I'm going to go up to layer and then layer style. That's a drop down menu, layer style, and just hover there, and then you'll see all these different options. Now I happen to know that I want to use stroke because I want to put a white stroke around it. And what that means is just a line. Now, you can't see a stroke, it just sort of thickened it and it made it look funny. That's because the color selected is black. So I'm going to click on here and I want it white to match the rest of this. And I'll say okay, so I've made my selection. And I can alter the size of this. I don't want it to be that big. I want something a little more subtle. And it was set at 3 before, which I actually think looks pretty good. So I'm going to say okay. So now we've got words on it. And that's really pretty much the card. Now on the back, you do need some text as well. Of course, we don't want to see the outside back. We don't want to see the lines. We don't want to see any of that stuff. So I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm on a layer that's on the back. Now, it turns out that in the template, but unseen because the eyeball is off, is the ISBN barcode that's there. So I can turn that on. And where does it show up? I know it's there, but I'm not seeing it. And I'm wondering if it's because it's underneath something, and it is. All right, so I'm going to, oh, I see what happened. I'm going to click on it because I have auto select layer turned on, and I'm just going to move it. It's upside down. We don't really want it upside down, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Just know that that's how we figured out where it was. And I'm going to put the reference bar back on just because I want to see what's there again. And I know that I can now put a logo and other text because that's what is needed on the back as well. So I'm going to use my text tool one more time, click, and I'm just going to say Char does cool stuff, which is silly, but that's okay. And I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to select a new type, something like Times is nice and simple. It's still set at 72, which is way too big. 12 is a fairly decent standard, so you can use that. Chart is cool stuff. I don't know. Why don't we just call the cool stuff company and leave it at that? Okay. Then you could actually put more stuff in there. You could find a logo to use, and you could put that on their little imagery as well. But basically, that's how you're going to get something onto the back. And we do want something on the back. And make sure that it's a color that you want. You want something readable. We're pretending that this is actually something that might be, given to somebody or possibly even sold. Wouldn't it be cool if you could make your own greeting cards and sell them? So you would want to make sure that it's quite readable. It's a little different when it comes to artwork, right? But when it comes to text that you want somebody to be able to read and be able to identify the company, what if this is really called the Cool Stuff Company? And I would want somebody to be able to go online and type in Cool Stuff Company and come right up with it. So there you go. Anyway, so now we've got a card. Now you could conceivably put a layer on here. You could also add, white into this, a white layer. However, when it's transparent like this, it's going to print whatever the color paper is. So you're probably printing on white paper. So that means that when we print this, it's going to be on white paper. And now we're going to go ahead and save it. Actually, maybe you want me to show you how to do that? All right, so I'm just going to do Command-Shift-N for new layer, layer 1. And we're going to call it the background. And you can see it here. It did come in underneath my artwork, and I'm just going to go ahead and fill this. I'm going to use the paint bucket because I find that it's very, very fast. I'm selecting white for my foreground, and I'm just going to paint it. And you know what? Or drop the color in, and look what happened. The Cool Stuff Company doesn't show anymore. And why do you think that is? It's because it's underneath the background. So layer stacking, all we have to do is click on that layer and bring it up to the top wherever we want it to be, and now it shows. And the barcode doesn't show because it's also below that. So we're just going to bring that up as well. And I can place it anywhere as long as it's above that white background layer. And that is your card, essentially. So now we're going to go ahead and save this. I tend to do save as just because I find, and we don't want it to be called template. We're going to call it WOV WUVWOO, card. And the reason I don't use spaces in my titles, and if I do, I often use an underscore or a dash because it doesn't take up as much real estate. And also sometimes between online and different readers between PC and Mac, it just makes it a lot easier to have something readable across devices. But mainly it's because of the real estate. You can have a lot of letters, but you don't really need that many. So keep it simple. And I'm going to save it first as a Photoshop document, right? And I'm going to go ahead and put it in my Valentine folder of assets that I had there. So there it is. But when I want to print it or send it or upload it, I'm either going to save it as a PNG or a JPEG. And in some cases for printing, I believe the Design Lab is like this. You need to make a PDF. So we're going to do another save as, and we always save with our layers intact. And the reason we do that is because you want to make sure that you can come back and re-edit this later if you want to. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick save as a JPEG. Let's say I'm going to be mailing it or I'm going to be uploading it to Facebook or something like that. So I'm going to save my JPEG and I'm going to save. And it knows it's a different file because it is a different file extension. And that's it. So we've got Cool Stuff Company here. Whoa, whoa. And I'm going to show you something a little different. But so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that layer off. I'm going to turn off the WOV. Well, I can keep the WOVU there, but I'm going to turn it off as well. And I'm going to bring another photograph in, or another art piece, I should say. So let's open a different one. Open. And this one is called Simple Math. This is another one of my art pieces that I created. Command A for select all, Command C for copy, get back to the original PSD, and Command V as in Victor for paste. Oh my goodness, it came in so big, right? So Command T, we're transforming it. So Command T, and now I'm going to grab a corner. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to keep it proportional. Of course, you're going to learn all this stuff repeatedly. And holding down the Shift key, keeping it proportional. I'm going to have it fit inside here, but I'm also going to give myself another background. All right, so I'm fitting it within the confines of my lines, the grid lines, the marker lines, whatever you want to call them, and I'm going to make it fit in there kind of nice. I usually like to give a little more bottom to something, just the tiniest bit. I find that it's a more appealing layout, personal preference. And I'm going to hit return, and now that's committed. Now we've got a background layer that's white. We don't need this one white anymore, so I'm just going to turn this off. And I want to bring another background in. So I'm going to go ahead and open. Do I want to open recent? No, I'm just going to open another one. And it's in that same folder, but this time it's in my backgrounds folder. And it is a kaleidoscope background that I created. I like to make patterns. I'm very excited about patterns. And I'm going to go ahead and open this. Command A for select all, Command C for copy, and then go back to my original image and Command V for paste. Now, as you can see, I'm getting on my move tool again. This is large, it's square, and it doesn't seem like it should fit properly. And so what did I do before to make sure that it was data instead of pixels and that I can enlarge this thing? I am going to turn it back into a smart object. So I went to Layer, Smart Objects, Convert to Smart Object. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag this one, Command T for transform again. And I'm going to grab my corner to keep it proportional, and I'm going to drag it out. And I'm going to let my background go right straight on that line. See how nicely that sits right there? And I've got these lines set up in here so that it actually tells me where the center is. And I'm going to hit return to commit that. So now you've got that background. We've got the cool card company, but it's not readable anymore, right? But that's okay. I just clicked on it, Command A for select all of that type, and now all I have to do is change the color of the type by going up to the menu bar specifically, because that's what you have to do when you're on the type tool. It's not affected in the same way as the foreground background is. You have to change your type color from the type tool. And I'm going to get on my move tool and I'm going to make sure this is placed somewhere that I like. I'm going to move it into this little area here, well within the confines of the area that is okay. Cool Stuff Company. Now, I want some words on the front as well. And this particular one is called Simple Math. So we're going to go ahead and get over here. It created its own type layer. I just picked the type layer. I clicked once and I got a new type layer. And I'm going to type in what I want to say. It's simple math. I'm going to hit return. And it's clever and silly, but it's okay. U, the plus sign, I, the letter I, equals love. Because it's a Valentine card, and it's okay to be silly when it comes to Valentine stuff. Now, do I like that type? Not really. Do I think it fits? No, not really. So I'm going to go back into my type styles or my fonts and my font gallery and scroll through just for a quick look to see what's there. And if there's something that I like better than that one, and I'm sure that there is, I want something that has a little bit of femininity to it because I think the picture is somewhat feminine. And let's see, it's simple math. U plus I equals love. What looks good? And I'm not going to get too fussy about this. We're going to use this one. It's a nice, simple, it's called Sign Painter. It has a script feel to it. It's probably a little tiny bit on the small side, so we'll try a 16 and see. Let's try 18 and see what we think. And I like it okay, but I don't like the placement. I personally think it should be a little bit sideways. So again, that transform tool, Command T for transform. Now, you saw me make a picture bigger. You saw me, you could do the same thing smaller, constraining proportionally. But another thing that you can do is when the cursor is off on the side and you see the double-headed arrow, that means you can tip it. So I think it'll look much better tipped, so I'm going to tip it. And I have to think about if that's the color I want or not. I'm happy enough with that, so I'm going to hit return. And then I'm going to go back into the color, and I'm going to show you a really cool thing you can do. So we're with the text tool, and I'm clicking on the color, and I can choose anything in here. I can go up and down here. Well, we'll talk about all this stuff in detail. Or that's just white, this is black in the corners, this is green. Or, and green does not look good, or if we drag our cursor over a color that is in the existing image, it'll select that color. And I would love to use that color, but you know what? It's a little bit too bright. So maybe there's another blue within this that'll look good. I'm not sure any of these look really good. It would benefit from a drop shadow, that's for sure. Or maybe we could try the red. Let's see how that looks. Well, that's not bad. Maybe we could try a bolder red. It's simple math. U plus I equals love. I'm not so sure that's great. I think actually the black looks better. So I think I'm going to pick that. It could actually be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to click on it again. I'm going to go back up here and let's try 24. That could actually be slightly too large, but you know what? I think it's okay. So let's pick that. And it still fits nicely within this area. And I'm moving this around, believe it or not. I'm on the move tool and I'm using my arrow keys to move it. Click, 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 and it lets me move it up, down, sideways, all of the above. So I get it put in the area that I like. And I'm going to say, you know what? I kind of like that. I kind of like that. But let's talk about another nifty little trick you can do. Now with this background, that's awfully red and it's not a color I like necessarily. And I do like the color, but it's not necessarily the color that I like with this image. So I'm going to go ahead and change it. And Command U accesses the saturation menu, right? Which is so cool. This is a pretty nifty little trick, and it's a good thing to know that you can do if you want to change the hue of something. I mean, this literally is how you change the saturation. That makes it more intense. That makes it less intense. As you can see, I went all the way down, so now it's essentially a black and white image. The red was already pretty intense, so I'm going to type this in, just put it back to 0. What I really want to do is I think I want to make it a little bit more orange. So I'm just going to use these sliders and see if I can get to an orange that's more in keeping with this image. And I think that I have that. I can also intensify it in the saturation a little bit. I rarely mess with the lightness because honestly, dark or light, it tends up just looking muddy. So I tend to just leave that alone. You decide how you want to handle that. And I'm going to bring this into a slightly deeper color and give it a little more saturation. And I think it matches the lips a little bit better. And I'm going to say, okay. So that is my card. And I like it. There's a lot more I could do. I could add a drop shadow. I could do all kinds of stuff. In fact, let's see. Let's get on the simple math thing here. And let's get on that layer. And let's go to Layer Style and Drop Shadow. There's a lot of people out there who don't like drop shadows. I happen to like them, and I think they're very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and change the opacity of the drop shadow a little bit, and the size is slightly too big. I'm going to keep the maybe the size is big, but it's the distance I think that's a little distracting. We could also, by the way, change the color of that drop shadow just for giggles. Remember, I'm in that box there, and I can drag my cursor over and I can click on any color, and that just changed the black shadow to a yellow shadow. I'm going to say okay. That actually makes it pop a little bit, so I like that. And I'm going to say okay, I'm happy, and now I'm going to save as. So we've got, this was the WOVU card, and now it's going to be simple math. Oops, I said not to do a, well, you can if you want to, or you could do an underscore. It's up to you. So I'm going to put that now as a PSD into my folder, and I'm going to do a quick save as here into as a JPEG. And I'll show you one more nifty little thing that occurred to me at the very last second here. Because why not give you an introduction to some stuff that we will cover in much greater detail on the day, day by day basis. Okay, so we have to convert this to a, okay, oh, I see, because I'm on a type layer, right? So it doesn't want to do what I want to do on a type layer. So actually, here's what I wanted to do, and I didn't tell you. What I want to do is I want to slightly blur the background. So I just had to make sure that I'm on the background layer, which is this crazy thing, and there I am. And I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to choose Gaussian blur. It's going to let me do it now, and I'm just going to bump the radius up so that it looks more softer. And this is all personal preference, right? I'm just going to do it till I think it looks good. And you know what? It's nice. It's not as distracting. I don't know. We'll see. In this case, I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to do my save as again. And I'm going to say, in this case, I'm going to say V for version 2. So we know that it has the background. And you could also put little things like, blur background or blur back, however you want to indicate that you've done that. And again, we're going to save it as a JPEG as well. So the extra little saving stuff just takes a minute or two. It doesn't take very long. So it's always good to just give yourself, safeguards. And that is it. That's how you do it. So basically, we've got our template, we put a picture on top of it, and we look for the background if we want one, and we can add text. Well, we definitely add text. You can make font choices, size choices, color choices. You can use layer styles. But so that's a basic introduction to a basic card. So I hope you enjoyed that.